let's get down to brass tacks. What the hell does this meme mean? What does this tweet, this series of tweets mean? I'll let you stew on that for a second. Now, obviously, we can discern from this subject that this certain individual here believes that gay marriage, the legal existence of it, not even just the existence of it, because it's going to happen regardless of whether or not it's legal, like most things. The existence of a legal precedent for gay marriage within Japan is contributing somehow to Japan's decline in birth rate. Now, while this may seem on some level like, let's say you're an idiot. Let's say you're really stupid. Let's say you're dumb. Whatever is going on up here just isn't working right. Maybe it never worked in the first place. You could make an explanation in your head as to why this would make sense. You know, if two men are having and or being married, then that means they're not physically producing children, so that, you know, that might in some way contribute to the declining birth rate. That is until you, of course, think for 2 more seconds. You just only need those 2 more seconds, too. You think for 2 more seconds and you realize, hey, those people were going to be gay anyways, whether or not you let them get married. They weren't going to contribute to the birth rate regardless of whether or not you were going to let them be married. That's ridiculous. That's insane. But why does this person respond with, hey, someone sounds greasy? It's not because they know for a fact they looked into the eyes of God and God showed them this person's greasy. On some level, we can assume that this person is greasy, not because they're not using their brain, which they aren't, but we can assume that this person probably doesn't get much play, probably has been bullied in their life, or, you know, just statistically. Is this a bad thing? No, this is not a bad thing. Ultimately, most people who are born, specifically white cis men who are born into today's America, are going to feel that sense of loss, that sense of like they're not getting something, like they're missing the beef, like they're not getting their dinner, they're not getting their 3-bedroom house, they're not getting their obedient wife and their 2-3 kids, 2 boys and a girl, you know what I'm saying, type shit. You know, they don't get all that. And ultimately, they didn't even get the small shit. The ability to go to college, right? Or the ability to at least get a job that's respectable, you know, that is respectable in the community. You grew up, you tried to do your best in school, tried to do your best in high school. You didn't do amazing, but you were maybe a little bit above average. But don't make it to college, or you don't make it to your dream college, right? You don't make it to the college that your parents would respect you for, whatever you don't even get those small victories. You don't even get those small things. And it's not because of any sort of factors that you even had any adherence to, anything that you had any choice in. You know, it wasn't a meritocracy. It never was. You being born in whatever area, literally your spawn point, determines what kind of schools you're going to go to. And while you may say, oh, that's crazy, that's insane, you can work. No, that's not true. Every single public school in America, at least specifically like public schools, even colleges, their funding is determined upon the median housing market. If you live in a poor area, you're going to go to schools. That's just how it works. And if you go to schools, you have a lower chance of being able to get into those top echelon of schools. Your chances are even lower. No matter how hard you work, you have to work doubly as hard as some rich kid, or even just some kid who grew up in a rich area. Even just a kid who maybe their parents weren't on an insane, you know, like level of economic and wealth freedom, but they were able to get a house in a nice area. You living in that nice area ultimately sets you up even better than any of your peers who lived maybe not even a couple of miles away, but just in a area in a different school district. What does that mean for losers in this term that I'm using, not in any sort of insulting way, not even in any sort of derogatory way, but losers as in a societal structure, right? Losers have to believe, right? They have to believe that they could have gotten these things. They have to believe that not only they have gotten these things, but they could have gotten them very easily if it weren't for insert whatever group it is you want to propagandize against. For a while, it was Asian people. You know, they were union busters. They were coming in and taking your jobs. That's not the case. They were cheaper. They were cheaper labor. Your bosses didn't give a fuck about whether or not they were Asian. He cared about the fact that he got to pay them less. And if you were sitting there angry about the fact that he was Asian, your boss could just go home, not even fucking worry about getting attacked the next day. You know, he could just keep raking in his money. It's the same thing. This is a concept within either a sociology concept or if it's a philosophical concept.
Today, Junior!
The idea that in advanced societies there will always be a scapegoat in terms of why some people have all of it and most people have none. There always has to be a scapegoat, a reason. So I just wanted to intervene on this point right here, mainly just because I think it's important that we make the distinction, right? Because while scapegoating is originally a philosophical concept just about societies in general, we have to understand that in capitalism, and specifically for billionaires and stuff, it is imperative to use scapegoating as a tool, you know, an actual physical tool rather than just, you know, say a concept that can happen in a society. They use this philosophical concept by exploiting your mimetic desire, the desire that, you know, somebody else has something and I want it. So I need to make some sort of moral distinction, some sort of explanation in my head for why I should be able to take it, regardless of the fact that I didn't pay for it or whatever the societal, you know, acceptable way of getting something. But yeah, it plays upon that, and it is important to make that distinction in this conversation. You know, there has to be in most senses, it's a group of people. That's been the easiest to fight against. Why? Because you can just make blanket statements about how these people are, and then I, Joe Schmo, living in the South, who has never even met, you know, a Filipino person or a Dominican person, out in public, I don't even have to interact with them. I can just assume very easily, based on my propaganda, that I don't like them. Every single society will always choose a scapegoat, and ultimately white supremacy is built upon the idea that, well, everybody except for you is the scapegoat. Everybody. Everybody except for you, perfect, beautiful white man, are the scapegoat. Every single person can be blamed for why you are not getting what you want. That's fucking insane. Especially when you consider that the same people who are telling you that are the same people who are raking in the dough every single day while you fight and kill yourself. There is a group. There is this very specific group. It's called, I can't remember. Hold on. I'm going to have to look it up. That's right. 764. And you know what, folks? We do our own research here. We don't use AI. I don't do that kind of shit. I don't want to diminish the amount of fresh water left on this fucking planet. Please and thank you. Please, please do not use AI for anything. Please turn that shit off. It's bad for your fucking brain. There's been studies on it. Thank you very much. But 764, this is a perfect fucking example. 764. Now, 764 is a modern, and I can get into this into other videos. Believe me, that's like my specialty with that shit. With specifically the esoteric shit, that is my specialty. I'll get into that later. But 764 is a perfect fucking example. Most of 764 are minors. Most of 764 are on the younger side. Why is that? Why are all these people who are even younger than I am, I'm not going to expose my age, but I'm pretty young, you know. I don't see these people as anything other than peers in that instance, right? Even younger children in those instances, right? And they're in these fucking Discord groups, they're in these fucking online forums and shit, and they're finding community talking about mass shootings and talking about how we need to eliminate all the Jewish and black people in America. They're talking about how they think that Trump is a deity, and about how ultimately that if you kill yourself on camera, that would be really cool, actually. And believe me, I definitely don't think that there are any CIA members in these groups. I definitely don't think that. I don't think that. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. Thank you. But there have already been connections with mass shootings with multiple of these kinds of groups where you go in and you victimize yourself. The entirety of modern white supremacy was the idea that you as a white man are a victim. Victimhood is the center of all of this. And it's really easy, right? Because if you play on victimhood, you can play on the fact that any single thing that goes wrong in your life because of capitalism, because of the way that society is structured nowadays, you can blame it on that. It's really, really easy. If you ever feel like a victim, which there are many cases in your life in which you are a victim. We are all victims of this system. You can take every single time that you are a victim and you can turn it into a reason to become more radicalized towards people who don't even deserve it, people who don't even know what's going on, people who could give a fuck. The people who in a community have been deemed to be the losers. You know, there's always that person from elementary school up until you graduate college and even beyond in your working life. For the people that didn't go to college, for the people that immediately started going into working, there are definitely people like that in your workplaces, and you know who I'm talking about. You know the greasy dudes that I'm talking about. What is a loser to do? What is a loser to do when you keep losing? What are you to do? Except blame someone. I have an answer for you. It is not women. It's the fact that you're poor. Now, I know you know that. I know you know you're poor. Everybody's been telling you that all the fucking time. You're poor, and that's okay. I'm here to tell you that's okay. It's okay to be poor because everyone is poor. All of us are poor. You have strategically been kept from that. Not by immigrants, not because of some celebrity who worships Baal and fucking diddles little kids. It's not because of that. It sounds very. It would be fantastical if it was all of those things, right? But it's not. It's all money. And I think why people reject that idea so much is because it's so boring. It's such a boring answer. You're telling me that the thing that is destroying all of our lives, the thing that is the cause of every single problem that you have ever had in your life, everything is connected. Everything is connected. Nobody is a loser because they were born that way. Nobody is a loser because their parents were losers. In some way they were, but that, again, that's because of who is allowed to have capital, who is allowed to move up the social ladder, who is allowed to easily move up the social ladder. The only difference between Hassan Piker and an incel sitting on the computer doing nothing, is rhetoric. That's the only difference. You don't fall into hating black people and hating Asian people and despising just any minority group, commodifying women. You don't do that because you're happy with your life. You don't do that because everything in your life is hunky dory and you don't feel threatened in any way, right? You have to sit there and you have to do the hard work of thinking about, well, then where does all this come from? Why am I not being granted this idea, this vision that I have been told that I was always supposed to get just for being American? When most people who leave these hate groups, there are many Facebook groups and Reddit groups and stuff for people who have left these hate groups in the modern age, and they talk about why. And it's always because they realize the one thing that, no matter how esoteric, no matter how systematized, no matter how explainable it may all seem, if you have a conversation with a woman, if you have a conversation with a Jewish person, if you have a conversation with a person of color, you realize very quickly that we're all human. That person is not as different as I am. We are all of the same clay. There is no inherent difference. There is no genetic difference. You are just as tribal as you ever have been. And to diminish any other group of people because of your own insecurities is your own true weakness. And it is the one that it is being exploited by those really in power. The idea of the conservative superposition, the idea that a conservative can be so close to you, can understand the structures even, and correctly identify the people who are affecting their lives, but they cannot ever come to the conclusion that that is because of capital means, or that is purely because of capital means. A lot of people, of course, understand that money is a very, very motivating thing, and that a lot of people are born and die and live for money. Especially for the ones who have been purely propagandized and do nothing but live their life by that system. Now, am I saying that any of those people are even inherently evil or wrong? No. Because, again, we are all just doing what we can to survive. We are all just doing the things that we can do to survive this world that we live in. I am a person of action. At least I try to be. I don't think that you should be all hunky-dory and forgive these white supremacists, any of the people in the Aryan Brotherhood, or any of the people in 764 or anything like that. I don't think that you should stop pissing on the grave of Rockwell. But what I will say, think about the children. If you really cared about the children, you would do everything in your power, everything in my power, to help them realize that they are not losers because of any perceived anti-whiteness. They are not losers because of anything that they did wrong or any work that they did not put in. They are losers because society needs them to be. They are losers because it is imperative for capitalism to have losers who can be angry and blame someone else. Because if you have a group who are devoted, hand, tooth, and nail, blood, sweat, and tears to the idea that you can blame this other group. There is nothing that a capitalist, billionaire, pig, human being, traitor, piece of shit would do to support that person. Any eyes off of him as far as he's concerned. Or she, there are women billionaires. They will do anything. They will fund any amount of money. And with the top 10% of people controlling 50% of the trade that happens, you have to ask yourself, what kind of influence do them going away make? If half of our trade is gone, suddenly reappeared into the pockets of the people, how much easier would it be for us to all just live as we are? You are not diluted in your ideas. You are not crazy. I believe from the moment that we take our first breath into this world and we begin screaming, it is for survival. I believe that we are all shaped by our need to keep going. And I know that obviously that philosophy raises a lot of questions, and I'll accept that. But what this philosophy does not do is takes away the humanity of anyone. And while I don't think that my interpretation of this is the interpretation, I do or at least I try to do what scientists do. I am no scientist, but what scientists do, and it is to test it, look at the conclusion, and see what the evidence is. And as long as you constantly live your life, constantly testing not only your own philosophical structure, but your own moral structure too, you can always evolve and become a better person. With that idea, why am I talking about losers? What do I mean by a loser? Who is the loser in this situation? Now, when I say loser, I don't want you to take that in a derogatory way. I don't want you to take that in terms of like, I think anyone is inherently a loser, or we are all born losers and there's nothing you can do about it and you must die alone being a loser. You know, I'm not being black-pilled. I don't believe in that shit. Which, by the way, if you think that the Matrix is about anything other than being trans, I hate to break it to you, you're dumb. You're very stupid, and look at who wrote and directed the films. Thank you very much. But I'm not being black-pilled about this. I'm not being nihilistic about this. When I say losers, I believe that there is a group of people who are specifically not selected. This is more of a feature of our capitalistic society that could not exist, but is perpetuated because of the way that capitalism is structured. When you have a bunch of people on the top who own most of the society and economic structure within your country, they are hard-pressed to keep it that way. They want to do everything in their power to survive. And when they are born rich, they believe that their form of survival is to become more rich. Especially when you are born a rich capitalist, you are told that to take and to control more is to be more highly respected. There will always be someone with a bigger yacht, they say. There will always be someone's son who went to a nicer school than you, they say. Gaining more and having more is how capitalism works. When you're a rich kid and you have to show up for your daddy, you have to do more. You have to control more than he did. You have to expand more than he did. And when you are doing that, you inevitably have to cut costs. When you cut costs, you, at least for most capitalists, will just Pay your workers less. Yeah, and you can only do that for so long before your workers start getting mad. And when your workers start getting mad, it is pretty easy for them, at least in the early days of industry and of factories and stuff like that. It was pretty easy for people to be like, hey, the dude who employs me is physically paying me less. What the fuck, the dude who employs me? All of those factory owners and all of those rich people were able to buy up media companies. Now, if they are able to get into your radios and get into your TVs and tell you that, hey, the reason that I'm paying you less is actually because of immigration, then there will always be a select group of people who take that very, very deep in their hearts. They take that very, very seriously. So much so that it becomes the structure of their entire psychological makeup. It becomes their philosophy. It becomes their moral compass. In society, it's very easy to scapegoat. In a capitalist structure, you need a population to exploit. And if you are telling that population that you are exploiting that it's actually this other group that's exploiting you, and they go and fight that other group, you don't even have to worry about them attacking your mansions or beheading you in a courtyard. So for white supremacy, for losers, for and when I guess I didn't clarify. Those people that take it very deep in their hearts and make it entirely a part of their philosophical and moral compass, those are the losers I'm talking about. These are who society deems the losers. You lose, you lose, you lose, and you will continue to lose because the more you lose, the more you blame. Capitalism, rich people, need people who stand up on a soapbox and blame everyone else. This is a thesis paper written, and it goes into how most people who are in white supremacist groups and people who are in white nationalist groups statistically either have been beaten in their lives, or they've had not very good relationships, or they have been R-worded, or they have considered self-exiting multiple times. Most of these people are not in a mentally good place. Most of these people don't feel like they are winners. Most of these people feel like losers. And it is this group of losers that must create a system, that must create this fantasy structure within their heads and within their small communities to make you blame somebody else. Losers don't come out of thin air. White supremacy, white nationalism, Nazis, Aryanism does not come out of thin air. It comes from a specific group of people needing soapbox blamers. Because if you structure your entire life off of standing up on a soapbox in town square, whether that be digital or not, and blaming anyone else except for the capital owners who truly hold the keys to your social elevation, then they're going to do everything in their power to support you. Nobody's ever going to shoo you out of the town square. In fact, they'll invite you back in. Target can have gay flags and shit in their fucking... They can sell gay flag t-shirts, and they can sell trans pride hoodies all they want. But their entire structure of being able to get cheap imported clothing and being able to get cheap imported goods and being able to have the market share in order to make closed business deals with electronics companies to get bulk goods on the cheap so that they can profit even more while paying their employees historically low. Poverty numbers. Every single company does this. Every single company is implicit in allowing these losers, TM, these soapbox blamers, to exist, regardless of whether or not on the outside they support it. Companies are not people. They seek only to extract profit from you, whether that be through your labor or through your pocketbook. Social mobility is something that is held in the hands of rich people, given away like a lottery to poor people to make them even easier to manipulate and even less likely to revolt. Nick Fuentes, look at Nick Fuentes. Not exactly an affluent figure before going on the internet. Not exactly someone who, if he didn't do well in school, was going to have a lot of upward social mobility. But it is because he became the soapbox blamer. It is because he became the loser, king of the losers, that he was able to have that upward social mobility. Do I think people like him should be lined up and shot? Maybe. For YouTube purposes, I won't say that I support that. I don't. What's the conclusion of this? You don't have to be a loser. Nihilism will never help you. The idea that you can find community in a group of racist people because they make you feel like you understand what's going on in your life is untrue. It's all a fabricated lie. The same thing with the same lie you were told that you were ever going to get any upward social mobility in the first place. The idea that if you ever went to college and just did good enough and just worked hard enough, that you would get what you deserve. And I hate to break it to you, son, but this is what you deserve. That is my conclusion. If you have chosen the easy route, if you have chosen to not examine not only yourself, but your own moral structure, then you are exactly where you deserve to be. But do you have to continue being there? Am I saying that there is no hope for the losers and anybody who is deemed a loser and anybody who tries to find community through soapbox blaming? No, I'm not saying you don't have a future. I'm saying you need to focus your soapbox blaming to the people who are really keeping you from that upward social mobility. Nihilism is not the answer. There is hope for people like you. Every loser has a choice. You can either continue being a loser and keep blaming everybody else, or you can do what every single monk, what every single revolutionary, what every single strong person that has ever existed has done, and bear the grit, bear the suffering that capitalism puts upon all of us, and feel it in your heart, and know that the only person you can blame is the people who truly take that social upward mobility from you. Fuck, I can't speak. The upper class. The 1% that controls the 99%. I'll put sources down in the description. My name is Milk. Welcome to my channel. Thank you very much.
Milk. I'm on that milk pack. Milk. Till the cows come home. Milk. That's some deep shit if you think about it. Milk.